Shabbat Shalom, everybody. This is Rob Shmuel. Rosh be with you, Rob Shmuel ben Yehoshua, Rabbi Stephen Samuel Epstein with this week's Torah portion. Hope you're doing well. Hope you're keeping cool, and hope those of you in the, not so sunny climates are doing okay as well. So we have a lot going on in the world today. And Judaism seems to be the focus of a lot of people's enmity. And I know, I've talked about this before on previous, what do you call these, broadcasts, podcasts, vlogs, video log. But unfortunately, it just keeps going. So what do we do about that? All right. Well, you have to fight lies with the truth. And these days, the truth is very confounded. With AI right now, we can make anybody do almost anything. In fact, I believe there are some scams going on when somebody will call you and record your voice and then manipulate it to use it to either call a bank or whatever, right? Look at some of the ads that we've seen, with people using AI for celebrities or well-known personalities. It just kind of happens. So we can basically make anybody seem to do anything. So, what exactly is the truth? Well, in the Torah, in our Torah, God says, and this is the Parsha, right after we get the Ten Commandments, we get a whole sort of a laundry list of commandments in the Parsha Mishpatim. One of them is don't join with others to make a false report. And it's very, very simple. My sister used to say there are three sides to every story: your side, my side, and what really happened. How do we really know what really happened with what people are doing with the truth? They make things in Israel seem to be what they're not, to make Israel look like the bad guy. And, I could say, well, Israel isn't perfect. They're a country. They do things that are wrong every now and then, just like every other country. The problem is, who are these other countries? Look at some of the countries in our world that abuse people, that persecute certain people, that are very xenophobic, that rule with an iron hand. You know, we just kind of have to rise above it. And the antidote to that is just be very clear headed, know what you're talking about, don't demean anybody, and tell the truth. Okay, let's talk about the truth because this week's Parsha deals with truth. So, a couple of things. Shelach, send for yourself. God says to Moses, if you want, it's up to you. That's kind of the concept of what's going on. Send out some people to reconnoiter the land, to take a look at it. Now, on the one hand, you would think this is a very smart idea. Moses sends in a bunch of representative from each tribe and says, check it out. Let's see what's going on. Let's see what we're up against. Let's see what the land is. Well, like any military person will tell you that is a great strategy. Having said that, the rabbis and the sages say, no, it's a horrible strategy because after everything God has done, signs and wonders in Egypt to get Pharaoh to release Israel, being trapped at the sea, opening the sea so Israel could pass through in safety, bringing us to water every 3 days, thanks to Miriam, giving us manna that tasted whatever your favorite food is, a pillar of cloud, pillar of fire to light the way, protecting, all these things. Why would you need to check for yourself if God says this is your promised land? I'm going to lead you into it. So it's kind of one or the other. Is there a happy medium? Yeah, sure. You can say, okay, thank you, God, but we really, we're humans, we're mortals. We kind of want to see for ourselves, so we're going to go in there. Okay, fair enough. But when the 12 spies come back, 10 of them are freaked out themselves and they put everybody else into a panic by saying, The land is plentiful, but you got to work really hard to do it, and the people that are working it are hardier than we are. We were like this famous line, we were like grasshoppers to them in our eyes, and so were we that they are their eyes. They're mighty warriors. We don't know that we can do this. Caleb and Joshua turn around, they stand up, they get up, and they say, we've got God on our side. If God says to go in and we're going to win, we're going to do it. It's going to happen. Unfortunately, the people panicked, and God says to Moses, the people have tempted me 10 times. Remember that number 10, 10 trials of Abraham, right? If there were 10 righteous people in Sodom and Gomorrah, 10 spies gave a report, tested God 10 times. God says, I'm done. These people are not qualified. They're not up to the task of settling the land. They're not going to do it. They're going to die off in the desert, and their children will be the ones to go settle the land. Now, let's take a look at this. Did they lie? No, they did not lie. They told the truth. Propaganda. What is propaganda and how does it work? It takes the truth, starts off with the truth, takes you down the truthful path, and then turns it around. We've seen this happen time and time again. The problem with propaganda is that you don't know where the truth ends and the spin starts. That's what propagandists rely on. They rely on your uncertainty. It's kind of like gaslighting. And they turn it around and they say, yeah, but the spy said, it's a great land. It's hardy. The people are big. They are hardy warriors. All that was true. They're bringing back these big grapes, these big pomegranates, all this great stuff that they're coming back with. But they're like, we can't do this. Look, we're going to break our backs trying to harvest the land. We're going to die trying to fight these people. Now, maybe there was some truth to that. They were big. It's hardy land. You're going to have to work a little bit, right? What happened when we resettled Israel in the modern times? You had two climates, right? You had two terrain, swamp and desert, but we tamed it, right? Same thing. People freaked out. Now, I've said before, and a lot of people have said, well, these people had a slave mentality. What are you going to do? On the other hand, was it really just the slave mentality, or is that what we human beings are wired to do? Are we wired to be insecure and to have that doubt? People aren't slave. There are no slave. Well, there are, but not here. In our country, in the modern world, there are not, there's, people have been abused, but, we're pretty level-headed. We're pretty clear-headed, 24/7 news cycle. You think we should be able to tell the difference between fiction and reality. Okay. But it's human nature to start conspiracy theories and all that. And here we are, right from the beginning of our civilization. There it is. So again, don't join with others in a false report. And that's what they did. God's like, I'm sentencing you to die out in the wilderness. I'm done. How far can I go? Obviously, you're not going to get it. So there it is. After this, we have offerings, in case somebody does or the people do an offering that's, not cool, not kosher, not what God recommended. There's ways around that. There are ways to forgive once you figure out what it was. Okay. Then we also have at the end, we have a man, who was seen gathering wood on Shabbat. People brought him to Moses. Moses consulted with God, and God said, take him outside the camp and stone him to death. Sounds pretty bad, doesn't it? We just had our first Miller course, and one of the questions is, what disturbs you about, what don't you like about Judaism? Pretty tough to ask people that are excited about becoming Jews, right? But somebody may look at this and say, why was this guy killed? But the Torah can be sparse in details. But by exegesis, by analysis, you can understand that he was warned. People told him, don't do it, and he did it anyway. So you kind of have to look at the reality. Again, you got to look at the reality. You can't just accept things on face value. People take verses and quotes out of the Torah, out of the Bible, out of context. That's why this Rabbi Ishmael went through and took the trouble of saying, well, here's 13 ways to analyze Torah properly, or the whole Bible, right? It's what you got to do. Again, don't join with others in the commission of a false report. Say it a bunch of times, and the next time you watch a news commentary or you see news or you read something, remember that. Remember that, there is a way to analyze and go beyond the scenes. Look at multiple news sources. Ask different people what they think. Maybe somebody has an idea that can help you understand it. Okay, we can go on like this forever, but hey, my time's up. Shabbat Shalom. Thank you as always for listening, and we will see you next time.